I thought she was healing me, but the alien's kiss went deeper than skin asterisk. The crashed emergency beacon cut through the static of Jake Morrison's radio, like a scream in the night. As head of the emergency response team for Sector 7, he'd heard plenty of distress calls, but this one was different. The coordinates led him deep into the whispering pines, where ancient trees stretched toward a sky painted with two moons, one Earth's familiar silver companion, the other a crimson gift from the Zephyrian refugees who'd arrived 5 years ago. Jake's hoverbike hummed beneath him as he navigated the forest path, emergency kit secured to his back. The crash site revealed itself through the smoke, a sleek, organic-looking vessel wrapped around an oak tree like liquid metal frozen mid-flow. The ship's surface rippled with bioluminescent patterns, definitely Zephyrian design. But unlike anything he'd seen before, steam hissed from the wreckage as Jake approached, medical scanner in hand. The cockpit had cracked open like an eggshell, revealing a figure slumped inside. She was tall, willowy, with skin that shifted between deep blue and silver depending on the light. Her long white hair fell in waves across her face, and when she stirred, Jake caught a glimpse of eyes like captured starlight. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake called, climbing toward the cockpit. The scanner showed multiple injuries, internal bleeding, possible concussion, and something it couldn't identify. The alien woman's eyes fluttered open, focusing on him with effort. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality typical of Zephyrians, but with an undertone he'd never heard before. "Human, why do you help?" "Because you're hurt," Jake replied simply, reaching for his medical supplies. "I'm Jake, emergency responder." "What's your name, Nix?" she whispered, then winced as Jake's scanner detected the full extent of her injuries. I should not have come here." Jake frowned, preparing a pain reliever injection. "Where were you trying to go?" Nix's hand shot out, faster than humanly possible, catching his wrist before the needle could reach her arm. Her touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, not painful, but intensely warm, like being wrapped in summer sunshine. "Please, no chemicals. My people, we heal differently." "Then how?" Jake began, but Nix was already pulling herself upright. With obvious effort, "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward his hands. Something in her expression, vulnerable yet determined, made Jake nod. Nix took both his hands in hers, and immediately Jake felt that warmth again, stronger this time. Her skin was softer than silk, but carried small ridges along her palms, almost like circuit patterns. She closed her eyes, and the bioluminescent markings on her arms began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. "What are you doing?" Jake asked, though he found himself reluctant to pull away. The warmth was spreading up his arms now, and he realized his chronic shoulder pain, a souvenir from a climbing accident years ago, was completely gone. "Sharing," Nix murmured, leaning closer. "My people, we can transfer healing energy, but it requires—" She hesitated, her starlight eyes meeting his. Deep connection. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Nix pressed her lips to his. It wasn't quite a kiss, more like a joining. Her breath tasted like ozone and starlight. And suddenly Jake felt everything, her pain flowing into him even as his strength flowed into her. Her memories flickering at the edges of his consciousness like half-remembered dreams. He saw flashes of her world, crystal cities floating in purple skies, beings of light dancing between the stars, and something darker, ships filled with her people fleeing across the void, running from something that pursued them with relentless hunger. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Nix's injuries had visibly improved, the bleeding stopped, her color returning. But Jake felt changed too, as if something fundamental had shifted inside him. "I thought you were just healing yourself," he said softly. Nix's expression grew troubled. "The healing, it creates a bond. Once begun, it cannot be undone." She looked away. "I should have warned you." Jake reached out, tilting her chin back toward him. "What kind of bond?" "The kind," Nix whispered, "that means I can never leave you now." The revelation. 3 days had passed since the crash, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his entire world had tilted off its axis. Nix had insisted on staying in his guest room rather than reporting to the Zephyrian settlement authority, claiming she needed time to stabilize the connection between them. Jake wasn't sure what that meant, but he couldn't deny the strange new awareness he felt like a second heartbeat. Just beneath his own consciousness, "You're different from other Zephyrians." Jake observed over breakfast, watching as Nyx carefully examined each piece of fruit before eating it. "The settlement authorities would have expected you to report in by now." Nyx paused, a strawberry halfway to her lips. "I am not from the settlements." Jake set down his coffee cup. "Then where?" "I am from the home world," she said quietly. "What remains of it?" The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. According to official records, Zephyr Prime had been evacuated completely 5 years ago. Its population relocated to Earth and 3 other worlds. But that's impossible. Your planet was dying, yes, but not dead. Nyx's fingers traced patterns. On the table, the same circuit-like designs that covered her palms. "Some of us stayed behind. Guardians, we called ourselves. We believed we could heal our world the same way we heal bodies, through connection, through sacrifice." Jake leaned forward. "What happened?" Nyx's starlight eyes grew distant. "We discovered we were not the only ones interested in our world's unique properties. The Devourers found us. Devourers, energy vampires. They consume life force, technological essence, anything that burns bright." She met his gaze. "They followed our people's exodus. They're coming here, Jake, to Earth." The room fell silent except for the tick of Jake's ancient wall clock. Finally, he spoke. "How long do we have?" "Weeks, perhaps less. They track psychic signatures and our healing bond." She gestured between them. "It blazes like a beacon to their senses. By healing with you, I may have doomed us both." Jake stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, normal people were living normal lives, walking dogs, heading to work, completely unaware that interdimensional predators might be hunting them. "There has to be something we can do." "There is," Nyx said softly, "but you will not like it." Jake turned back to her. "Tell me." Nyx rose and moved toward him, her movement fluid as water. "The bond between us, it can be deepened, made stronger, strong enough to fight back." "How?" Instead of answering immediately, Nyx placed her hand over Jake's heart. Instantly, he felt that warmth again. But this time, it came with visions, the two of them standing together against creatures of living shadow, energy crackling between their joined hands, Jake's human determination somehow amplifying Nyx's natural abilities. "Complete joining," she whispered. "Not just healing, true bonding. Your life force and mine, permanently intertwined." Jake swallowed hard. What would that mean, exactly? Nyx's hand moved to cup his face, her thumb tracing his cheekbone. "It would mean we could never be apart for long without weakening. It would mean sharing not just energy, but emotions, memories, dreams. It would mean giving up being entirely human." Jake finished. She nodded. "And I would give up being entirely Zephyrian. We would become something new, something the Devourers have never encountered before." Jake closed his eyes, feeling the rightness of it even as his rational mind screamed warnings. "And if we don't, then when they arrive, they will drain this world dry, and everyone you care about will become empty husks." Nyx's voice broke slightly. "I have seen it happen before." Jake opened his eyes, seeing his own reflection in her starlight gaze. "How do we do it?" Nyx smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her, it reached her eyes. "The same way we began, with trust." She leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. "But this time, Jake Morrison, when I kiss you, I won't be able to let go. Maybe." Jake whispered back, his arms coming up to encircle her waist. "I don't want you to." Their lips met, and this time Jake was ready for the rush of sensation, the flood of shared experience. But as the connection deepened, he realized Nyx had been wrong about one thing. She wasn't taking his humanity away, she was showing him what it truly meant to be human, the willingness to sacrifice everything for love, for hope, for the chance to protect something greater than yourself. The bonding process began at midnight, when the twin moons aligned directly overhead, and the boundary between dimensions grew thin. Nyx had spent the evening preparing Jake's living room, arranging crystals she'd salvaged from her ship in intricate patterns across the floor. Each crystal hummed with its own frequency, creating a harmony that made Jake's teeth ache and his vision blur slightly at the edges. Second thoughts, Nix asked, noticing his hesitation. Jake shook his head, though his hands trembled slightly, as he sat cross-legged in the center of the crystal formation. Just nervous. It's not every day you voluntarily merge your soul with someone you met less than a week ago. Nix settled across from him, close enough that their knees touched. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to glow in the moonlight streaming through the windows. In my culture, we believe souls recognize each other across lifetimes. Perhaps. We have done this before, in another life. Jake managed a weak smile. That would explain why this feels both terrifying and inevitable. Nix reached for his hands, and immediately the crystals around them blazed brighter. The bonding will happen in stages. First, we share surface thoughts, hopes, fears, everyday memories, then deeper, core beliefs, fundamental truths about who we are. Finally, she paused, her grip tightening on his fingers. Finally, we share essence. What makes you you and Mimi will blend and become something new. Jake nodded, trying to project more confidence than he felt. What do I need to do? Trust me. Open your mind completely. Do not resist when you feel me there. Nix's eyes began to glow with that inner starlight. And Jake? When the pain comes, and it will come, remember that it means we're succeeding. Before Jake could ask what she meant by pain, Nix leaned forward and kissed him. The first wave hit. Immediately, a cascade of Nix's memories flooding his consciousness. Her childhood on Zephyr Prime. Learning to heal small animals with her grandmother. The terror of the first Devourer attack. Shadow creatures literally draining the light from the sky. The agony of watching her world die, piece by piece, as the planet's life force was consumed. In response, Jake's own memories flowed outward, growing up in small-town Colorado, becoming an empt because he couldn't stand to see people suffer, the helpless rage he'd felt watching his father waste away from cancer. Good. Nix whispered against his lips, now deeper. The second wave was more intense. Jake felt Nix's core philosophy that all life was connected, that healing one being strengthened the whole universe. That love was literally a force of nature capable of reshaping reality. Her beliefs crashed against his own pragmatic worldview, like waves against stone, but instead of breaking, they began to merge. Jake's human determination fused with Nix's cosmic perspective, creating something that was neither purely human nor purely Zephyrian. Then came the pain. It started as a burning sensation in his chest, as if his ribcage were expanding to accommodate something too large for human anatomy. Jake gasped, his eyes flying open to meet Nix's gaze. Her face was twisted with the same agony, tears of liquid light streaming down her cheeks. Don't stop, she managed through gritted teeth. We're almost there. The burning spread outward, racing through Jake's bloodstream like fire. His vision exploded into fractals of color as Nix's essence merged with his on the most fundamental level. He felt his DNA rewriting itself, his neural pathways expanding to accommodate new forms of perception. Simultaneously, he felt Nix changing too, her ethereal nature gaining substance and weight, her cosmic awareness grounding itself in human emotion and determination. The crystals around them shattered in unison, their stored energy released in a blinding flash. Jake screamed, though no sound emerged from his throat. Reality seemed to fold in on itself, and for a terrifying moment, he wondered if they had made a mistake, if instead of becoming something new, they were simply destroying themselves. Then, suddenly, silence. Jake found himself lying on his back, staring up at the ceiling. His body felt simultaneously alien and more himself than ever before. Every sensation was heightened. He could hear Nix's heartbeat as clearly as his own, could feel the electromagnetic field of his refrigerator humming in the kitchen, could sense the life force of every plant and animal within a mile radius. Jake? Nix's voice came from beside him, but also from inside his head. He turned to look at her and gasped. She was still recognizably Nix, but changed. Her skin had gained a subtle golden undertone. Her hair now held streaks of brown, most striking. Her starlight eyes now held flecks of warm human hazel. You're beautiful, he said, then realized he could feel her pleasure at the compliment as if it were his own emotion. Nix sat up slowly, studying her hands. The circuit patterns on her palms now pulsed with a warm golden light instead of cool blue. We did it, she whispered. I can feel everything. your memories, your strength, your stubborn human optimism. She looked at him with wonder. How do you carry so much hope? Jake pushed himself upright, marveling at the new awareness flowing through him. He could sense energy patterns in ways he'd never imagined, could feel the very fabric of space-time, like a tangible thing, the same way you carry the weight of an entire world's loss, I guess. Because someone has to. They looked at each other in the moonlight, no longer quite human or Zephyrian, but something entirely new. Outside, a wind picked up, and Jake realized with his enhanced senses that it carried the scent of something dark and hungry. Still distant but approaching, the devourers were coming. But now, for the first time, Jake felt ready for them. The hunters. Arrived. First sign came 3 days after the bonding, when every electronic device within a 5-mile radius of Jake's house began malfunctioning simultaneously. Cell phones displayed impossible symbols. Televisions showed static that moved with predatory intent, and car engines died without explanation. Jake felt the disturbance like a physical pressure against his consciousness, while Nyx doubled over as if struck. "They're here," she gasped, her hand pressed to her temple. The golden circuits on her skin flared bright enough to cast shadows on the walls. "Closer than I thought possible." Jake helped her to the couch, his own enhanced senses screaming warnings. Through their bond, he could feel what Nyx felt, a vast, hungry intelligence probing the area, searching for the source of the energy signature they'd created during their joining. How many? A scout ship. Maybe 6 of them. Nyx's eyes had gone completely gold. A sign Jake had learned meant she was accessing her deepest abilities. But Jake, these aren't just devourers. They're hunters, the elite trackers. They won't stop until they find us. As if summoned by her words, the temperature in the room plummeted 20 degrees in seconds. Frost began forming on the windows, and Jake's breath misted in the suddenly arctic air. Outside, the streetlights flickered and died one by one. Darkness, creeping toward their house like a living thing. "Get behind me," Jake said, surprising himself with the authority in his voice. Something new was awakening in him, not fear, but a fierce protective instinct amplified by their bond. "Jake, you don't understand," Nyx started, but her words were cut off as the front door exploded inward. The creature that flowed through the doorway defied easy description. It moved like liquid shadow given form, roughly humanoid but wrong in ways that made Jake's enhanced perception recoil. Where it should have had a face, there was only a swirling void that seemed to drink in light itself. Tendrils of darkness writhed around its form, reaching toward them with obvious hunger. Fresh bonding, it spoke without a mouth, its voice like winter wind through dead leaves. Such delicious resonance. "We will drain you slowly, make it last." Jake stepped forward, and to his amazement, golden light blazed around his hands, not unlike Nyx's circuits, but warmer, more solid. "You're not welcome here." The hunter laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Human courage." How quaint, it gestured, and Jake felt an invisible force slam into him, driving him to his knees. "Your new gifts cannot save you, little flame. We have devoured civilizations that burned brighter than." The creature's words ended in a shriek. As Nyx rose behind Jake, her entire body blazing with combined human and Zephyrian energy. But this wasn't the cool starlight he'd first seen in her. This was something fiercer, tempered by human emotion and determination. "You made a mistake coming here," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "This is our world now, our bond, our rules." The hunter snarled and lunged forward, its shadow tendrils reaching for Nyx's blazing form. But Jake was ready, moving on instinct he didn't fully understand. He caught Nyx's hand, and their combined energies created something neither could have achieved alone. A barrier of pure light that the creature slammed into like a wall. Impossible. The hunter hissed, recoiling. "Humans cannot channel. We're not just human anymore." Jake interrupted, feeling power coursing through him in ways that should have been terrifying, but felt as natural as breathing. And we're not just Zephyrian either. Together, they advanced on the hunter, their combined aura pushing back the unnatural cold. Jake could feel Nyx's memories guiding him, showing him how to shape and direct the energy, while his human stubborn refused to let the creature intimidate them. The hunter began to retreat, its form becoming less solid as their light pressed against it. "This is not over," it snarled. "The swarm comes when they arrive. Your little light will be swallowed by eternal darkness. Let them come," Nyx said, her voice carrying a new note Jake had never heard before, not just determination, but joy. Battle joy, the fierce happiness of finally being able to fight back. "We'll be waiting." The hunter dissolved into shadow and flowed out through the broken door, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and decay. Jake and Nyx stood in the wreckage of their living room, still blazing with combined energy, breathing heavily. "The swarm," Jake said finally. "How many are we talking about?" Nyx's glow dimmed slightly as the immediate danger passed. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. They'll come in waves, testing our defenses, learning our capabilities." She looked at him with an expression that mixed pride and worry. "What we just did, that was just the beginning. When the real battle comes, we'll face it together," Jake said firmly. "Whatever they throw at us." Nyx smiled, and Jake felt her love for him like warm sunlight through their bond. "Do you know what the most human thing about you is?" "My devastating good looks," she laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Your absolute refusal to give up, even when the odds are impossible." She gestured toward the destruction around them. Most beings would be planning their escape by now. Jake looked at the shattered door, the frost-covered walls, the electronics. That would never work again. Then he looked at Nyx, this incredible being who had crash-landed into his life and changed everything. "I'm not most beings anymore," he said. "Besides, this is my home, our home, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let some interdimensional bullies take it away from us." Outside, thunder rumbled in a clear sky, and both of them could feel it, a vast presence approaching from the depths of space, hungry, impatient, and utterly alien. The real invasion was beginning, but for the first time since this all started, Jake wasn't afraid. They had something the Devourers had never encountered before, a bond forged not just from necessity, but from choice, from love that had literally rewritten the laws of biology and physics. Let them come. The final stand the swarm arrived with, the dawn, blotting out the sunrise with a cloud of living darkness that stretched from horizon to horizon. Jake stood on his roof beside Nyx, their hands intertwined, watching as hundreds of hunter ships descended like a plague of metallic locusts. Each vessel pulsed with the same void energy as the creature they'd fought, but magnified 1,000-fold. "Last chance to run," Jake murmured, though he made no move to leave. Nyx squeezed his hand, her golden circuits blazing in response to the approaching threat. "Where would we go? They can track our bond across galaxies now." Below them, the town was evacuating in panic. Emergency sirens wailed as people fled in whatever vehicles still functioned. Though Jake suspected it wouldn't matter. The Devourers weren't just after him and Nyx anymore. Their bonding had created a resonance that would draw the creatures to Earth like moths to flame. "There." Nyx pointed to the largest ship, a writhing mass of shadow and hunger that dwarfed the others, the Swarm Queen. "If we can destroy her, the others lose coordination." Jake finished, understanding flooding through their bond. "But how do we get close enough?" Instead of answering, Nyx stepped to the edge of the roof. "Do you trust me?" Jake looked down at the 30-foot drop, then at the army of interdimensional predators approaching their home. "With my life." Then, "Jump." They leaped together, and instead of falling, they soared. Their combined energy had manifested as something like flight. Not the graceful floating of Nyx's people, but something more dynamic, powered by human determination and alien grace. They streaked across the sky like a comet, blazing gold and silver, heading straight for the heart of the swarm. The hunters reacted immediately. Beams of dark energy lanced toward them, void-touched projectiles that would have disintegrated ordinary matter. But Jake and Nyx danced between the attacks, their bond allowing them to move as one being with two bodies. What one couldn't see, the other could. Where one was vulnerable, the other was strong. "Magnificent," the Swarm Queen's voice echoed across dimensions as they approached her ship. "You have made yourselves into the perfect meal. Your bond will feed my children for centuries." "Not if we feed you to the void first," Jake snarled, surprised by the venom in his own voice. Through Nyx's memories, he had experienced the destruction of entire worlds. felt the agony of billions as their life force was drained away. The rage he felt wasn't just human anymore, it was cosmic. In scope, they slammed into the Queen's ship. Like a guided missile, the impact should have killed them both. But their merged energies created a protective shell that allowed them to punch through the vessel's hull. Inside, the ship was a nightmare of organic corridors and pulsing void energy, like being inside the belly of some primordial beast. The Swarm Queen waited for them in the ship's heart, a creature of such profound wrongness that Jake's enhanced senses nearly shut down in self-defense. She was massive, easily 20 feet tall, her form a constantly shifting mass of darkness and hunger. Where the other hunters had been vaguely humanoid, she was purely alien, all-reaching tendrils and consuming maws. You cannot comprehend what you face, little lights, she hissed, her voice coming from everywhere at once. I have devoured stars. I have drunk the dreams of dying gods. Your pathetic bond is nothing compared to— Shut up, Jake interrupted, his patience finally snapping. You talk too much. He and Nyx moved as one, their combined power erupting in a wave of pure creative force, not just destruction, but the opposite of everything the Devourers represented. Where they touched death, Jake and Nyx brought life. Where there was hunger, they brought satisfaction. Where there was void, they brought wholeness. The Swarm Queen screamed, a sound that shattered dimensions. Her form began to unravel as their energy coursed through her, undoing eons of accumulated darkness. Impossible. You are just human. Just Zephyrian. We were, Nyx said, her voice carrying the weight of star death and rebirth. But we chose to become something more. Love, Jake added, pouring everything he had into their bond. Real love. The kind that creates instead of consuming. The kind that builds bridges between worlds instead of burning them down. The Queen's death scream echoed across space-time as she dissolved, her accumulated centuries of stolen life force exploding outward in a cascade of pure energy. Through the ship's viewports, Jake could see the effect rippling through the swarm without. Their Queen's coordination, the hunter ships were turning on each other, their void hunger finally consuming them from within. It's over, Nyx whispered, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming them both. Their power flickered like a candle in wind as the adrenaline faded. Jake caught her as she swayed, his own vision blurring. They had won, but the effort had drained them, almost to death. Hey, stay with me. We did it, Nyx. We actually did it. She smiled up at him, her golden circuits dim but still pulsing with life. We saved them all. Your world, my people. Everyone. Her eyes fluttered closed. Worth it. No, Jake said firmly, gathering her closer. We're both walking away from this, together. He reached deep into their bond, finding reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed. Human stubbornness. Nyx had called it the absolute refusal to give up. He poured that determination into her, sharing his life force the same way she had shared hers during their first meeting. Nyx's eyes opened, blazing with renewed light. Jake, I love you, he said simply. All of you. Zephyrian, human, whatever we are now, and I'm not letting you go. They kissed there in the dying heart of the Swarm Queen's ship, their bond blazing bright enough to be seen from Earth's surface. Below them, the last of the hunter vessels fell from the sky like dying stars. Their threat ended forever when they finally made it back to Jake's house, flying under their own power. Because apparently that was just something they could do now. They found a crowd waiting. Government officials, scientists, reporters, and half the town's population, all staring at them with mixtures of awe and terror. So, Jake said quietly to Nyx as they landed in his front yard, think they'll want to study us? Nyx laughed, the sound carrying joy and exhaustion in equal measure. Probably. Think you can handle being the galaxy's first human-alien hybrid couple? Jake looked at their joined hands, at the way their energies still danced together like visible music, at the woman who had crash-landed into his life and turned it into something extraordinary. With you, he smiled, I can handle anything. And as the crowd surged forward with their questions and cameras and scientific instruments, Jake Morrison, no longer entirely human, no longer alone, faced the future with the same stubborn optimism that had carried him through everything else. After all, he had Nyx, he had their bond, and he had learned that sometimes the best healing happens not when you fix what's broken, But when you choose to build something entirely new, the kiss had indeed gone deeper than skin. It had reached into souls and created something the universe had never seen before, something worth fighting for, something worth dying for, something worth living for. The end.